Welcome to the G-Spot.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's G-Spot, where we get to have a look at the weird and wonderful things that happen in the Dynamic GT League. We also get to have a look at the footage of things that may have been reported, or we can clarify things, or just things that we found funny or that happened on the track, or maybe even some decent overtakes. Have I missed anything there, Ray?
Did you say educational purposes?
I can't remember. I might
Yeah,
have done. I'll let you add that though. That's fine. That's fine. Fun fact for you though: nothing starts with N and with a G.
Nothing what?
Nothing starts with N and ends with a G.
Yes, it does.
No,
Nog?
nothing starts with N and ends with a G. Huh? You got any other words? Nothing starts with an N and a G.
Nothing starts with an N and a G.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Mm-hmm.
Smart ass.
Well, there you can tell it's Christmas time. Yeah, it does. Nog. What's nog? Eggnog. All right, okay. But it's all right. I'll see if I'll give you. I should. No, I'll wait for the next one. Okay, so a couple of things for us to have a look at here. This first one, Ray, I think we can just go straight into it. So let's do it in three. Oh, let's do it. Hey, in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. G1 Race 9, Rich, what a move! So this is from Le Mans this week. Didn't quite fully see it on the race footage. Well, Rich blues up the inside of Steve F1 into the final few corners, but there's a bit of off-track action going on here. But let's have a look. This is, I will say, a very good move by Rich up the inside on Steve F1. A really, really nice move. Now, he does take a bit too much corner there as Demonar's gone off. And now what I would say is he is already ahead when he does go off the track. Now, whether he's trying to give Steve F1 room, I don't know, maybe. But I think they both, they both may have gone off a bit. But touching on ETLs, but for Rich, that was a brilliant overtake. But what I think you'll really like, Ray, is what happens next. So he's gone from what a move
I can't stop.
to sideways around the kink, now on the brakes, now not making the corner, realises he's not making the corner, turns right. But what I actually find fascinating is this bit. He slows down. You mentioned it actually during commentary. It looks like he may have slowed down a bit there. And you know what? He does. And I like that from Rich. He's made sure he's gained nothing by effectively cutting the second part of the chicane. I like it.
Yep, that was nice. Nice move and nice slow down.
Yeah. What about the exceeding track limits?
But we didn't really get to see it, so we couldn't really comment on it.
Well, I suppose one comment would be it happening now and again without gaining an advantage. Okay, but you should be actively trying to not be off the track. And if you are going off the track, you should be actively trying to learn from that and stay on the track. But nice overtake, Rich. Just a shame you followed what a move with what a yeah.
Wall up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Yep.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G2, race 9, some Steve on Steve action. Okay, so this was the overtake on the final lap of the race of Steve F1 on SGP. Now, we did talk about this at the time as to whether Steve F1, was it a push to pass? There's definitely contact in there. But what I will say is that camera view doesn't give the best look. If we look from here, we can see at the point that Steve F1 is slowing down, SGP's late on the brakes and running wide. And yes, there is a tiny bit.
What?
Go on.
I just looked like Steve F1 went straight for him a bit.
It kind of does look like that. But what I will say is SGP is doing everything he can to not go wide and spin. I've only put a couple of clips in there for time's sake. But if you want to keep looking at them, Ray, you can. What I would say from what I saw there was, now see, not many people may understand this or know of this, but it's something that I do a lot, which is if I know I'm going way too deep into a corner, then I will make zero attempt to turn, because the straighter the wheels, the faster you can slow down. So it is a tactic I will use, and I think SGP was kind of doing that here. Once he realised he'd braked a bit late, if he'd have tried turning for the corner, he's either going to slide straight on faster or spin. So he was really wrestling with the car to not do either of those. I also think that Steve F1 has been caught out a little bit watching SGP, because Steve F1 hasn't made the apex of the corner, but that's where I think he's been caught out watching SGP. And yes, there is a little bit of contact, but what I think I would say is that SGP's already made his mistake, already gone wide. The overtake wasn't completed because of the contact, and there's not really a lot of contact in it.
Agree to disagree.
Tell me your thoughts. Go on.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm just winding you up. Yeah, SGP would be so. Even if Steve F1 didn't make the apex, SGP would have been so slow. But I think it was a cheeky wee smack. Like, haha.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, last. I think the spectate view makes it look more than it was. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, even SGP had said, I mean, the reason we've actually looked at this is because SGP wanted it shown that what Steve F1 did was fine. So yeah, fair enough.
Well, it wasn't really. It's supposed to avoid contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we're talking about avoiding contact. Should we have a look at the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go straight into this one. So good luck. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G3, race 9, fighting to the end of the end. Now this is the last lap. Art Pal, 5th place, got it in the bag. Coming into the final chicanes, gets it sideways, big time sideways, spins around. We don't really see what happened on that view, but let's have a look. He's gone down to first gear, and I think that's what's ended up spinning him. Gone to first gear too soon. We see people avoiding him. Okay, so we're looking at it from...
Really take you out there?
Yeah, well, if you look at it, we're looking at it from my view here. I did have to take evasive, and then also had to try and get back on the track and try not cut in the corner. Rich disappears, then Jimmy comes past, and SRI comes past. So there's nothing I could do there, nothing Art Pal could do. So we look from Rich's view. So Rich is comfortably in 7th place at the moment, coming through the corner, sees Art Pal spinning, goes to the right, Jimmy up the inside, SRI behind him, and too much corner and gets reset. Let's have a look at the next. So this is from Jimmy's view. So Jimmy behind Rich, little nudge from SRI up the inside. Now a bit contact. A bit difficult to have a look from SRI's view. So let's see, right up behind Jimmy, got the spinner. Oh, little nudge on Jimmy. Push. Oh, little nudge on Rich. Now Jimmy nudges Rich. Not sure about this one. Let's have a look from this one. This, I think, is an interesting view. Bump on Jimmy. Bump on Rich.
Oh. Okay.
Now, admittedly, I put that in there as a bit of a joke because genuinely, I do think it's massively unlucky that Rich has got reset there. Could I put blame on Jimmy or SRI? Maybe, but I think it also may be harsh because there's cars spinning in front of them, and I don't know, maybe extenuating circumstances. I don't know, maybe not. What's your thoughts, Ray?
Well, it's the first time I've looked back at that view and might have been a wee bit naughty by
That's all right.
SRI. Yeah. That's what the oof was. It's like, oh shit.
I thought it might be. The thing is, on the pack cam, when we did the race footage, that was the view I was on. So after we'd done the footage and I said, oh, well, SRI, give Rich a bit of a nudge. And you were like, no, I didn't. I was thinking, well, I know what it looked like on that camera angle. Now, I mean, there's the tiniest of nudges, but it's one of those where, yeah, there's the tiniest of nudges. But if Jimmy wasn't there, Rich may have been all right. But Jimmy was there and was there fairly. So, yeah, I mean, I've not obviously gone into major detail with the footage there, but it would have been an interesting one had Rich decided to report it. Let's put it that way. The stewards would have had a conversation to have.
Well, SRI has reported it.
Well, you shouldn't have fucking done that, you bastard, because now I've got something to do on this Saturday. I was going to mention to you, anything that we view today cannot be used as a trigger for placing any reports. But no.
It was before we done the G-Spot.
Well, it was before I said it, so... Now that I've said it, anything further that is seen on this G-Spot cannot be used as a trigger for placing reports.
What do you mean? I still get the same timeline as everybody else.
Yeah, but you can't use me bringing things to your attention to... it's like if we go and have a look at, here's Demon R, he's ETL'd there and there and there, and you go, I've seen Demon R ETL'ing. No, I've shown you me ETL'ing for the G-Spot. See,
I'm not reporting anybody else, I'm reporting myself. That's what I did.
I might let you off. But I should have waited until Saturday for this, and then you wouldn't have reported it. No, well, I'm involved. Actually, I'm involved, so I can't have anything to do with it. Great, I'm all right. Right, the Steves can deal with that on the Saturday. But yeah, I mean,
we can get pissed.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
The thing is, it is an interesting one, though. It's a tricky one because some could say, well, Art Pals triggered the accidents. Well, yes and no. Art Pals had a moment all on his own. What actually I think happens after that can't be put. I mean, like.
It's after we've passed Art Pal.
Well, I know, but I was going to say, I wouldn't feel like I could put any blame on Art Pal for me ending up off the track and being passed. My own view of that, sometimes that just happens in racing. If a car's spinning, you take avoiding action, and sometimes whatever happens is going to happen as long as you don't gain from it. I mean, that's the thing. If I'd have taken the action that I did and I ended up overtaking multiple cars, then that would be wrong. But Jimmy and SRI passing me, that's not wrong because they've not gone off track. Although for SRI it might be wrong because he should have been waiting for Richard. But that's for the stewards to decide. Anything else you want to add on to that one, Ray?
No, I think you got it covered.
Okay. Right, this next one, we're going to have a little chat before we go on to it because bit of a disclaimer, a bit like previous ones where I just want to explain that we're not picking on anybody here or anything like that. During the race at Le Mans, we did hear a couple of comments made about Jason possibly doing a few ETLs. Also from other people about other people, perhaps meant in jest, but also meant to, because the way that we would deal with somebody ETLing is to take the piss, so that they're aware at the time, so that they are aware that they're going off track and not to do it. And then,
I was one of them.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't believe it. Yeah. But if someone did keep doing it, obviously then they are taking the piss, and you'd expect them to change. Now, so during the commentary, we discussed a little bit about different places where drivers could end up off the track, or different scenarios, and I said that we'd go into looking at ETLs a bit more, and that's what I'm going to do here. However, I've only gone for one person, one corner on multiple occasions, because this will allow me to show everything I'd want to show about ETLs on that one person. Okay, so Jason, please don't feel like I'm picking on you. I'm not. I'm just using. I'm not
ETL
Davis. No, but I'm using. This is where I'm using Jason as an educational tool for everybody. Also for myself, because I think once we've seen this footage, we're going to have a conversation. But I think there may also be a conversation with the admins as well to clarify a few things. So yeah. So please, no one feel like I'm picking on them. I'm
sure he can handle it. If he can handle flat pack, then he.
Well, yeah. I mean, I must admit, right? Jason today, while we're recording the G-Spot, which is on Friday, Jason has sent us a picture. He is Swedish, in Sweden. He sent us a picture of a Swedish can of beer and an IKEA flat pack he's putting together, which is the most Swedish thing you could ever. I think I could imagine him sitting there, cracking open the beer and going, "I need to take a picture to show the guys this because it's funny." And that's the thing. Okay, we take the piss sometimes about Jason and IKEA, but that's because he's got a good sense of humour. If he didn't have, he wouldn't have sent the picture. It's a brilliant.
And I bet he got it home in a Volvo.
He probably did as well. Yeah. I mean, well, this is the thing as well, right? When we get our bit of snow over the coming week and we're all taking pictures going, "Oh, look, it's snowing," Jason will be sat there in 5 foot of snow going, "What the fuck are they going on about?"
That's just bad dandruff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just a dusting. But, okay, so let's go and have a look at this footage.
I've had more dusting in my cakes.
I was going to say something so rude then, but I thought I'd better not. I spread their legs and there's been more dust than Anyway, let's move it on. Let's take a look at this one, shall we? In 3, 2, 1, let's go. G4, what is an ETL? Well, it's exceeding track limits. That's what ETL stands for. Okay, so we're looking at Jason here. This is the opening lap. Now, we'll see from this view, okay, he's clearly off the track. Now, we're going to look at it from this view and we'll see, yeah, he's over the curb, he's clearly off the track. So that is an ETL. Does not want to be continuing to do that. So this is the next lap. He's closer to the curb, but what was the situation? Well, let's have a look. Now, this is something that I would not want to have to do as a steward and go into this kind of detail, but we've looked, he's on the curb. But as we've scrolled it forward a bit further, does he stay on the curb? Because if he does, he's okay. But maybe he isn't on the curb. I don't know. But as a steward, we don't want to have to go down to this route of detail. Well, let's have a look. Okay, so he's no longer on the curb. So technically, Jason is exceeding track limits at this point. So let's have a look at another one. We're going to click forward. So yeah, also the position his car ended up in would also be this position is also exceeding track limits, I would say. So this is on the next lap. Oh, difficult to tell. So let's pause it and have a look. So now, okay, there he has just got.
He's got his tyre on by a ball hair.
Exactly. But if we move forward, like that's gone forward one click. Ooh. Ooh.
Oh.
It's hard.
Front tyre's still on by a ball.
It might be. Well, let's have a look, shall we? Well, Oh, well, I'd say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say that, yeah, there's a little bit. It's a little bit. But this is a level of detail as stewards we don't want to have to get down to. But what I will say is, he may not be on the curb now. And he's not. So that is now exceeding track limits. Now, this is the next lap. And, okay, he's clearly on the curb this time. No problem. So we can tell he's getting more and more on the curb. So he's working on it. But this is where we get into a key point. Now, the curb has ended. And technically is off the track. Now, this is where I want to mention that. This is why I want to mention, Jason, we're not picking on you, but there are other places around the track, and other drivers will have done it, myself included, where we've had a wheel on the curb, but then the curb may have ended, and then we're actually beyond the white line and off the end of the curb. So technically, yes, we're exceeding track limits, but I'm not saying that it's something that we've never necessarily clarified, but it might be something that we would have to clarify. I don't know. Got you thinking, hasn't it?
Yeah. Because it's not as if it's like, you know how curbs have got the angle bit at the end,
Yeah.
where at most tracks,
Yeah.
to be honest with you,
They have like a triangular bit at the start and end of curves, don't they?
start and end of the curbs, and you kind of follow that. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see the admin's different views on it.
It definitely would be. I mean, I know what my kind of initial view is. Just not necessarily as an admin, but just as a layman. So, okay, the footage that we saw there of Jason, I think that was like the first 4 laps. But I mean, another reason why I wanted to show it of those first 4 laps of Jason was, one of the things we say is, if someone's exceeding track limits, okay, he did it on the first lap, he did exceed track limits. He's not really gained anything. But has he done it again the next lap? Well, on the next lap, he's much, much closer to the curb, right? So he is actively trying to not exceed track limits. Now, he has gone just beyond the curb, but then the next lap, you can tell he's actively even more trying to not exceed track limits. And when he is then staying on the curb, which is the 4th lap, so he's actively, again, trying to not exceed track limits, then potentially the exceeding track limits is off the end of the curb, not over the curb, if you know what I mean. We're seeing that progression of, okay, making the mistake, but then trying to rectify it. But I could understand anybody behind him thinking, well, hang on, he's exceeding track limits again and again. But until you look at it in detail, you go, oh, right, okay, yes, he is, but I can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I would say as well is, I mean, okay, we've had a very close look at the track limits there, and like, you picked up on what I did on one picture where it's like, oh, is his front tyre still on the curb? Well, I mean, I put that in there for a bit of a joke and a laugh, just to have a laugh about it, because I find it funny. But it's one of those things where that
was kind of going into what the stewards would have to do.
Yeah.
To actually classify if it's off track or not.
Yeah. But at the same time, I know personally I wouldn't really want to have to go as a steward going through those kind of things and into that level of detail on that kind of thing. It's one of the reasons why we're not necessarily dead strict on track limits. But obviously we want people to not be exceeding track limits, because we don't want to have to go down into those fine details on those ones. it can be very time consuming, because didn't we have one with Jimmy recently where was it a spa where it was like, okay, yeah, he's gone off track, he's exceeded track limits, but it's a one-off from what we've seen. But obviously, if someone reports somebody for doing it every lap, then no problem with that person putting that report in. Because if someone is exceeding track limits every lap, then it would show that they're not doing the things they need to avoid it. Excuse me. But then obviously it would take the stewards to have to go and look through that stuff. I mean, we do it. It's not the most pleasant things to have to do. I don't want to come across as like, don't report people for exceeding track limits. That's not what I mean, but yeah, I'm trying to explain how we treat exceeding track limits in a more relaxed way, simply because of the effect it can have on us as people, as stewards, having to look into those fine margins and what's a gain, what isn't a gain, blah blah blah. Yeah. And and continuing on from
Just
that.
do your best not to exceed track limits, and
Yeah.
if you see somebody doing it over and over, then
Yeah.
or even if they do it and you feel they've gained a beneficial advantage, then send it.
Yeah.
We will have a
look. Yeah.
a look at it, but
I mean, if you think about it, we showed the footage earlier, didn't we, of Rich making that overtake on Steve F1, and after the overtake, I think they both may have been off the track. Me personally would perhaps be a little more lenient in those final few corners if people are trying to do the right things, because they are tricky corners. But for me, it was what happened at turn 1, what happened with Rich, that it's like, yes, he's exceeded track limits, yes, he's gone deep, he's cut a corner, but he's then made sure that he has not gained anything.
He lifted up, so Steve F1 was right back on his arse.
Absolutely. And yeah, I can only commend him for that. Right, should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Now, interestingly, I think this next one does feed on from what we've been saying. A little bit about track limits as well. So, let's get myself into position. Okay, let's get ready in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. G5, race 9. Was it? What a move by Jimmy. Well, this was lap 2. Very busy into the Mulsanne curve. And Jimmy making a move up the inside of Demon R and Twilight. Now, we didn't really get to see the full effect of this. What I wanted to mention is Jimmy gets a nudge from behind there, which then leads him into an overtake. And we'll have a look at this in slow motion in a moment as well, because there's a few things to factor in here. So we're looking from Bob. There's the little nudge from Bob that sends Jimmy up that inside. Now, Jimmy is on the curb, so technically it's not exceeding track limits. Now, Jimmy has made the overtake, so there was the nudge. Now we'll go at this in slow motion. So this is kind of a tricky one in a way. If Jimmy cuts this corner, then he needs to not gain any advantage. However, from our rules, as long as you've got wheels on the curb, you're okay. So for Jimmy, although he may not have intended overtaking any of these guys, he is on the curb with 2 wheels. He is also just about under control of his car. Now, this is a situation, in my view, where you could say, well, it's a little bit late of an overtake on Twilight, all those kind of things, but I'll come on to that a little bit more in a moment. Because the key points for me now are, what can Jimmy do here? I think Twilight thinks Jimmy's going straight on, he's not making this corner. So I think Twilight may have backed out of this a little bit and goes for the switchback, thinking Jimmy's going straight on, which is exactly what I thought was going to happen. But this is a situation now where Twilight's turning in, and if Twilight turns in and makes contact with Jimmy, it's not Twilight's fault or Jimmy's fault, personally. But Jimmy has actually got it slowed down and is making the corner. There's a little bit of contact between the two, so hard to tell if Jimmy was understeering or not. But the key point now then is Jimmy would have to leave Twilight space on the exit of this corner. If he can't, it's not a fair overtake. If he can, it might be okay. And the answer is Jimmy's able to leave Twilight quite a lot of space on the exit of the corner. Now, there are many factors into this particular incident. Now, one of the things that we've said before is if you are hit off the track, you should not be gaining an advantage from it. Jimmy wasn't hit off the track. He stayed on the track. If you are hit by somebody and you stay on the track and overtake people, that's not necessarily gaining an unfair advantage as long as the overtakes that happen are what could be classed as fair ones or okay ones. So with that particular corner, in my view, your view may be different, Ray, and maybe the Steve's is different as well, and maybe Twilight's is different. But in that instance, Jimmy's kind of car is alongside Twilight's with just enough time for Twilight to know that he's there. But it's one of those where if Twilight turns in, Jimmy would have to be understanding that Twilight's turning in because he would have had every right to because of how far ahead he was. But also, Twilight turning in can't really get annoyed at Jimmy because A, the reason Jimmy's there wasn't by his choice, he was put there by somebody else. But B, if he gets round the corner safely, not Jimmy's fault. If he doesn't get round the corner safely, then Jimmy shouldn't be making the overtake. That then is a different scenario. So that then would be, right, Jimmy, you need to drop behind at least Twilight, and it was Bob that caused the thing. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
I think any other sort of view or perspective on it?
Yeah, well done to Jimmy.
Well, annoyingly, yeah. Well done.
Yeah, but no.
I mean, it's... Go on.
He can't do anything about that. He helped the back. He wasn't off track. Overtake on Twilight, maybe borderline, but he tried his best from the situation that happened. It was just a little bit of contact. Don't know if it was Twilight going for the undercut or switcheroo, or just wasn't too sure Jimmy there, because it's alright playing it in slow motion. It seems like there's a lot of time to react, but when you're racing at full speed, there's not a lot of time to react. So quite an interesting one. I think it just played out well for Jimmy.
It did, didn't it? I mean, what I would say is, had Jimmy ended up in that position without being knocked, I think I would 100% say that's a late move. You shouldn't be. I mean, obviously, I can't go back and look at it now, but if we were to go back and look at how far away was Jimmy from Twilight or Demon R at the kink, like that very last king, you would perhaps say, yeah, too far back, if he was there of his own accord. But because he's been put there by somebody else, that's where in this instance, it does.
Well, at the kink, he was side by side with Demon R.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, even then, before that, at the breaking point, he was a lot further back. So you could perhaps still say, well, if he was there on his own, it's a bit late on the brakes. He's got up alongside eventually. Maybe there's enough room. But then to go for the move on Twilight, yeah, that's. But as I said, he's not there by his own accord. He's been put there.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he's done really well to hold on to it. It's also different as well. I mean, because one of the things we've talked about before is, like, if someone fucks up and goes, oh, shit, and it lets everybody know, or as I do, I shout evasive, and it either means you need to fucking move, or I'm taking evasive, or to let someone know that I'm trying to take evasive, and if I hit you, that's why. In those situations, when we shout that, say that, you should not then be completing an overtake, because if the other person has taken avoiding action, then it's an unfair game. So, but this wasn't one of those. Yes, Jimmy was verbal, but what he said was something like, oh shit, I've been hit, I don't know if I'll stop, or something like that. But then very quickly he was able to go, actually, yeah, I can. So he didn't say anything that I would have deemed as making others take evasive action.
Unsportsmanlike type thing.
Yeah. And
again, I can't remember, to be honest with you. It's like...
But again, the main part of two main parts of it come down to the fact that he was nudged into the corner, and it was only a nudge. But also, it's what Jimmy did at the apex and the exit. Jimmy was on the apex, and he left space on the. If he doesn't leave space on the exit, he can't keep the position.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that if you get hit off the track, cut a corner, leave someone space on the exit of the corner, you can keep the position. That's a whole different scenario. Right, shall we move on to the next one? Now, I'm gonna ask you a question, actually, Ray.
Okay.
Before we go into this, actually, I'm gonna ask you two questions. Okay. What do women and a Happy Meal have in common?
What do women and a Happy Meal have in common?
Mm-hmm.
Dunno.
They both come with a toy inside them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's your next question?
Yeah, you'll tell that, Kirsty, later. The next question is, how attentive do you reckon the DGT drivers are? Like, do you think they pay attention very well? Do you think they notice things?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know.
So, little things like, I mean, we may have, well, I know in the past, me and SGP, when we used to play our Pro Evo online games, we'd write the name of a car on the advertisement hoardings, telling people what the next championship car was, and nobody ever spotted it. But that's a different game. I mean, I just wonder if people would notice something that was right in front of them, or right behind them, or side by side with them.
Don't know, because I don't know what situation and
Well,
when.
I can tell you the answer is they've got the attention span of a dead fucking goldfish, because let's take a look at this footage in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, gee whiz, are you paying attention? Well, the answer is no, because, well, there's Demon R with his livery at race 1, and there's his livery at race 2, and there's his livery at race 3, and there's his livery at race 4, And there's his livery at race 5. And there's his livery at race 6.
Right.
Yeah. And there's his livery at race 7. What's his livery going to be like at race 8? I want. Oh, there it is at race 8. Okay, and what about the final race of the season? Oh, there it is at the race 9 at Le Mans. And as a comparison, that's they don't pay attention at all.
I think because you've done it very subtle with your colours.
Yeah. I literally did. It went from the first race. I was like, afterwards, I was like, my car's a bit dark. You know, I'll just make it a little bit lighter. And nobody noticed. I was like, oh, okay. The next race, I thought I'd go a little bit lighter, and I went light. I went from dark grey to chrome silver, and nobody noticed. So I thought, I wonder.
Is that not against the rules?
Well, that's why you can't report anything that's brought to your attention in the G-Spot. So, from chrome silver, I was like, well, I wonder what if I'm going to get chrome. Ow! I was like, what? I wonder if I'll go like to an off-white. So I went a bit off-white, nobody noticed. I went brighter white, nobody noticed. I went to the whitest white on the game and nobody fucking noticed. So I was like, okay, well, I'll make the rear end a little bit lighter. Did that, no one noticed. And then at the last race, nearly the whole car was white and nobody noticed. And the funny thing will be now, obviously we're recording this before the race footage has been put out. I bet nobody notices even after the race footage has been put out. I don't think people will know until they watch this.
Yeah.
No. I know. Really,
I don't think they will.
I don't. We'll really know how attentive the guys are then, won't we? Yeah.
I think because the way you've done it, just like we do a practice in our race, so because of the way you've done it, it's not as if we kinda know what colours, but we're not too sure of the shade.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last race, I don't think anybody was caring.
Probably not. No. I can say that I did change it before every practice session. So it's not like I changed it just for the race. I changed it for every practice session. But I also had to spend 2.6 million buying another one so I could have a picture of them side by side. So it's cost me more than it should have done. But I thought it was quite amusing. Now, as for it being against the rules, well, technically, yes, it is. I didn't get permission. But is there any harm in that? Maybe the admins have to talk about it. Huh?
Yeah, because as that you message the page to get approval for livery changes on your livery. Yep.
Now, obviously, we did have this season with Miles and Move. But, I mean, one of the things I know, obviously, we brought in having the names on the sides of the car. Now, with Bob and Jimmy, that would have helped massively this season if Bob had been in a white car or had his name written in massive letters on the side of the car. But, obviously, this last championship or two, we've kind of been a bit more relaxed with it because when you look at the Super Formula, obviously, that wasn't, even if you did have your name on it, it wasn't necessarily easy to see. We were just going off the livery anyway. But we may have to make sure that people don't do what I did going forward.
So is that a championship ban then?
No. Hey, the colour didn't change at all. It was just a different time of day. That's all it was. It gave a different light on the car.
You've already fucking said that.
The thing is, though, when you do see them side by side, it's like, fuck, it is nowhere near the same, is it? Anyway, but I mean, one of the things that Bob may not be aware, but obviously one of the things that we have done as well is, like, for example, we know that certain people are going to use certain colours unless they decide to change. So Jason's used like the chrome green Castrol for quite a while now. SGP's gone from having like the white Mercedes style to now having the sort of orange BTCC former BMW style. Or is it McLaren? No, it's not McLaren, is it? It is the BTCC version style.
Yeah, it's Honda, is it not?
Well, yeah, the Yuasa Honda was also that colour, yeah. But I'm thinking Turkington's BMW was that colour, wasn't it?
Don't know.
Yeah, he won a couple of championships in the RAC BMW. There was that colour. See, Twilight's red and black. Jimmy's green, SRI blue, Steve F1 a different shade of blue, Art Powell multicoloured, and
Jimmy Savile tracksuit.
yeah. Who else is it? Conrad is also sort of blue-ish, but tends to be different to the others. So it is something that I think going forward we will sort of be making sure that the liveries are quite different. To be fair, we're going to have a bit of time from when we announce the next championship car to that championship starting, that we should have time to get the liveries in and check them and make sure they're not all the same and all that kind of stuff. Right, anything else you want to add?
No.
Right, well, that's the last G-Spot of the year. Unless anything else pops up, crops up, but hopefully it won't. And then we can just take a complete break over the Christmas period. So, Ray, thank you very much for joining us on commentary and the G-Spot.
No worries, anytime. And thank you for being here on commentary, G-Spot, video editing, picture editor.
And livery changer.
Yeah.
Right, well, it's my pleasure. Right, have a good one, everybody. Have a good Christmas and a good New Year. Best wishes and thanks to all the folks for getting involved. Hit like, subscribe, the notifications, you know what to do. And we will see you in the new year for an all new set of races. Have a good one. We'll see you all again soon.